Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sasha Chilkova. I'm a marketing manager here at Withum. Thanks for joining us today. Our webinar is Advanced Power BI Techniques, GIS, and Mapping. We're going to take it a little step further today and do a little bit of a deeper dive into Power BI and how you can gain even more insights from your data. We're going to go over a couple of housekeeping items. First, we are recording the webinar, and we will send out the recording and a link to the slide deck at the end of hopefully today with the links to the slide deck and the recording. We'll keep the session to 45 minutes. We'll leave 15 minutes or so for questions at the end. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them in the questions pane of the GoToWebinar control panel. And like I said, if any questions come up that are relevant throughout the webinar, we'll address them then. Otherwise, we'll leave them to the end. And without further ado, I have Dale Tuttle with me today, as well as John Tate and Katie Coriel. And Dale, I will let you introduce everybody.
Hi there, this is Dale Tuttle. I'm a partner at Withum. We're in Bethesda, Maryland today. Most of us are. Sasha is not, full disclosure. Sasha's in an undisclosed location in Virginia. She won't tell us where. I'm here with John Tate and Katie Coriel. So as I said, I'm a partner here at Withum Digital, and I've been consulting a long time. I think I don't have to make it above 15. I'm just going to hold it at 15 plus forever, if you guys don't mind. But we've been part of Withum now for 6 months. We've been in business as kind of a team for 15, and that's quite impressive. And with me here is John Tate. John, please say hello.
How's it going, everyone? My name is John Tate. I'm a data scientist here at Withum, and we've been working since we came on with Withum to deploy Power BI and data analytics services across most of the Azure platform, expanding into things and exciting avenues of Power BI analysis like GIS, which Katie is going to share her expertise on today.
Well, before we turn to Katie, you like college basketball? What's your favorite team?
I'm a Syracuse fan.
Okay, got it.
It's both a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I can imagine. Katie, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm Katie, and I am the GIS person. My master's is in archaeology and GIS, so mapping, and I came from AccuWeather to here at Withum about 2.5 months ago, and I primarily focus on GIS within Power BI now versus ArcGIS as I did before.
Okay, and what's this Go what?
Go Shockers.
I'm still confused.
#3 basketball team in the nation right now. So, and we have March Madness first and second round in Wichita. I'll be attending.
Uh-oh.
And Shockers, Wichita State University, shock of wheat is a bundle of wheat. It's an actual measurement. So
if you've learned nothing today, folks on the phone, you've learned what a shocker is. I really, honestly, from Kansas, I thought it was some sort of, device to cattle thing. I was really, really surprised to find out that it was a shock of wheat. That's much more comforting to me, actually. So anyway, so that's the three of us, and on the phone is Sasha, as you heard. So there's 4 of us taking part today. So we appreciate you guys taking the time a little bit out of your midday if you're on the East Coast with us. What we're really going to talk about is mapping, introducing mapping into your Power BI. We'll talk a little bit about where you guys are on the phone, and I should say on your computers, if you're using Power BI and you're using mapping. But there's a lot of powerful features that generally our customers are just becoming familiar with about integrating maps and visualizing their customer data or maybe their own corporate data and overlaying maps on top of those data. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we'll look at basic mapping, ArcGIS, some custom visual map options that Katie has cooked up. We'll do some Q&A, and then we'll talk about how we can do some other stuff together. So why don't we get right into it? So a little bit of the commercial about Withum. We're actually Withum, we're Microsoft Solutions and Services, but we're changing that name to Withum Digital as we speak, so everything's being rebranded. Our team, our kind of the Withum Digital team, if you will, We're SharePoint specialists, Office 365 specialists, data specialists, if you probably surmised, since we are doing something on Power BI today. Withum itself, we're 900 people. We're primarily East Coast, but we do work all over the country, all over the world. In fact, our data team does work all over the country, and with some of the projects that we have coming up, we'll be doing stuff overseas very soon as well. So we're a pretty big firm, and but we, Portal Solutions is our former name, and we were in business for 15 years, specializing in a lot of the SharePoint and the Office 365 workloads. So we want to take a quick poll, and I think Sasha is going to open up the poll, and we want to know how many of the folks on the line are actually using Office 365. We'll make this, you know, why we're asking all this stuff, but we'll tailor our discussions today and our observations based on what we know people are using. So most people are on Office 365. That's really good news. Looks like maybe a couple are not. So we'll make sure we explain a few things to the folks that are not Office 365 users. So there's the first one. Sasha, I don't know if you even need to respond, but I'm going to move off to the next one. So most people are on Office 365. Now we want to know, is anybody using Power BI? Anyone on the line using Power BI? Most people, yes. That's great. Thank you for participating. We do have a few people that are not. So we want to make sure, Katie and John, that we don't assume everybody knows what we're talking about when we start using our Power BI nomenclature. So I'll say the vast majority of people are yes, but a few people are no. Excellent. Thank you again. So I think we're ready to dive right into it. So we thought we'd start out with you know, kind of the obvious questions. Why should you care about mapping on top of your Power BI reports or any information that you might want to visualize with your data? John, Katie, any observations along those lines? I put up a couple: customer data and corporate data. What else? I mean, what are some examples?
A few good examples is also, I mean, being able to look at your data in a spatial way and see that, like, you can have options of looking at heat maps, looking at outliers in terms of fraud, or seeing if you have customers that are using a farther away location than their closer one, to then allow you to see about why is that.
And we have examples here where we have customer data, and you can actually see where your customers live, where they live, and where they're spending their money. So, John, what other types of mapping components are there?
Gotcha. I mean, even as more business moves to the internet and moves to the web, still a lot of business and day-to-day work still goes on in the physical space. And when you're talking about physical space, physical locations, you are talking about coordinates and zip codes and addresses. And so being able to take your existing data and kind of bring it into the physical realm and see how that actually impacts your kind of on the ground and your brick and mortar business can be equally as important as purely viewing your data in a digital or a kind of spreadsheet context. So Power BI has some great options for allowing us to combine data from all those different sources and kind of map it to the physical world, as it will.
And we have customers, for instance, that are holding companies. They want to see how their companies are performing based on location. It might even be a company with multiple office locations. In fact, that's how Withum operates. So we want to see if there's a geographic, or see how things are performing from a geographic perspective. So that's really all we're talking about here. So why don't we talk a little bit about basic mapping in Power BI. And in a few seconds, I'm going to turn this over to Katie. So that there might be a delay. But Katie, tell us a little bit about Bing Maps before I make you presenter.
So this is pretty much just kind of discussing that there are two different primary sort of native mapping possibilities within Power BI. One is Maps, which is actually based off Bing Maps, and it is great for very basic. The one thing it does, I will make a point, one thing that it does do better or allows for versus ArcGIS maps is the ability to drill down in your data. that's great, but I find a lot more errors and frustration using the Bing Map custom or the Bing Map visual in Power BI because of how much difficulty it has with geocoding either addresses, zip codes, states, things like that. And it doesn't allow you to customize a lot of that or make decisions based on how you want your data to be geocoded or located.
So if you want to do some basic mapping with your data, like maybe office locations and get some rollovers on what the office location is, what their basic metrics are, you could do something like that. Is that correct?
You could. I would still say and prefer using what we'll show in just a minute, the second option, Esri's ArcGIS map. But this allows.
Are you going to show us this, or should I move on?
Yeah, no,
I will give you control. This will take a few seconds, folks, so bear with us.
Okay, so this is the Bing map, and just wanting to, sorry, thought I was in the ability to edit. I wanted to just show some of what are the options, and this data is actually supposed to only be United States data, but you can see that it is coding a lot of the locations in Europe, and there's no way to fix this. And it's also your options for customization, as I'm just kind of flipping through and showing.
And it's probably worth noting, Katie, we do have a few folks on the line that are not Power BI users, so you can see the Power BI control panel, correct?
Oh, yeah. So this is Power BI Online. I will say briefly, what I find best practice is I build everything in Power BI Desktop, which is separate, it's free, and then I publish everything to the cloud, to Power BI service, and that's where you're able to make dashboards, you're able to share, collaborate with others, things like that. And so this is the online. And then real quick, just want to show these are the only option, these 5 are the only map options for the Bing Maps. And you can see that it's this icon right here.
So given the limitations of Bing Maps, would you say if you were going to use Bing Maps instead of ArcGIS or some other custom solution, that you need to do more work on kind of the data preparation end to make sure the data works better?
Yes, you're going to have to do a lot more cleaning of your data, a lot more fine-tuning, just a lot more effort to get everything, because
in this case you have what? You have county and zip code?
This is actually, it's actually state and then zip code.
State and zip code. So those should all be US, but as we can see, it's mapping to Europe. So you'd have to really make sure that Bing Maps would interpret your data in the way that you want it to.
So it's a good example of that. While you can incorporate Bing Maps, you do have to kind of worry about some limitations with the integration. Is there anything else you want to show us on this one, Katie?
That is it. Sorry, I'm trying to...
Well, you can give me control, and I think we're going to head back to another slide. So as you can see, there are a few. Hopefully you can see my... we did that. Yay. So now start talking about a little bit more advanced. So most of our customers, would you say most of our customers are interested in the more advanced?
Yes. And the great thing, so ArcGIS Maps, the company that this is based off of is called Esri. They are, without question, the world leader in GIS and mapping, in just hands down without question. Esri's primary product is ArcGIS. They have ArcGIS Desktop, Pro, Online, a lot of different things. So Esri and Microsoft worked together to develop this extension, ArcGIS Maps for Power BI. And while it does not have the same level of functionality as even Esri's ArcGIS Online, it is incorporated into Power BI, and it is so as of last month, there's a free option, and there's now also a paid subscription option, which is the Plus, and it's only $5 a month extra on top of your Power BI license if you go with a Pro license.
So if you're a current Power BI user, you have ArcGIS included in?
Yes, the basic map is fully included. It's there and ready to use. It's good to go.
Right. So for those of you on the phone who are Power BI users, you have access to ArcGIS right now.
Yeah, all Power BI users have access to ArcGIS for the free implementation. And like Katie said, for $5 extra per month for the Plus edition. And that would be, so ArcGIS Online in of itself is $9 per user per month for the most basic online package. And that's not integrated into Power BI. So that's not having your geospatial data alongside your operations data and your financial data and everything like that.
And that's really the opportunity we're looking at here, is you're taking your interest or your whatever geocoded data you have and combining it with your other data. It might be customer data, it might be your own office performance data. We're talking about essentially layering data together to give it that geospatial component and those visuals around geospatial combined with your other data.
So not to mention just the power of having your geospatial analysis in the same kind of one-stop shop as the rest of your analysis.
Yep.
And not having to load maps and dashboards from another program or another system, just to be able to flip back and forth between, you know, your monthly operations data and your geospatial analysis.
So why don't we, Katie, I'm going to give you control again, and why don't you take us through some of this more advanced stuff?
Sounds good.
There we go.
Okay. So moving over to ArcGIS Maps, and I've not really done anything to this because I wanted to show how just the beginning loading of your data into either the Bing Maps or the ArcGIS Maps, you can still see that this should all be United States only, but you can see that it is mapping all over the world, and showing how easy it is to fix this. And
what kind of data are these, Katie?
So this is zip codes. This is zip code data by charge amount and say like billable hours for a client. I guess real quick I'll show these are the base map options, and you can see that some of them have the little flag beside it. That means that it's only for Pro or for the Plus users. So I do have that. But I will say that a lot of times one of my favorite map of all of this is this dark one because it makes colors pop so well. Another thing with ArcGIS Maps is that you can either do points or boundaries. And so another option that the Bing Maps doesn't have, but so I'm going to do zip code. So I'm going to choose boundaries, which if you have any familiarity with GIS, this is where you're talking about polygons, shape files.
I was never good at geometry. I'm just saying.
And so then without having to do any data cleaning, I'm able to then choose the United States. And then these are the different options that you can map your data if you have that. So and now you can see that it's updating and
how much can you zoom in, Katie?
Quite a bit. Sorry, I wasn't even getting to that point yet.
There may be a little delay from the GoToWebinar software, but Katie's starting to zoom in a little bit. You can start seeing the distribution of the data across the map.
And then, so because I switched to boundaries, there's only two options on how to show your data, either location or by color. But if you do points, then you also have heat maps. You can have clustering, size and shape, lots of different options for the theme. And then this is for the symbols. Let me make sure.
So is it the case you have a fair amount of control on how it looks and feels?
Yep. And so I'm gonna quickly just do a few things to make this look better.
I mean, there's definitely a delay there, so hang on a second, folks.
I will say one thing that the Bing Maps has over ArcGIS maps is they have more color options, whereas these are, you can only use these color ramps. So you are limited to that, but it's not the worst thing in the world.
Say as well, the Bing Maps are a lot more lightweight than the ArcGIS in terms of their implementation.
Yeah.
That if speed is a concern or connection speed, things like that, the Bing Maps will tend to load quickly. Whereas with all the features that are present here in ArcGIS, that does come with some overhead.
Yeah, that's a good point. So especially if you're, it depends on how sophisticated your analysis you want to allow your users to be. But even if you are just yourself creating maps or doing some analysis, you have to bear that performance penalty, if you will, with the ArcGIS view.
And I will say that anytime presenting ArcGIS maps, like in this situation or say through Skype, it is slowed down considerably. So without that presentation option, it does run much faster than what you're seeing. And so with this, you can see these are all zip codes. You are able to hover over them, look at data. You see the white spots are places that per client in that zip code are have more or higher chargeable hours to that, like from them. And so there's that.
So you want to zoom in a little bit more?
Oh, yeah. And then I'll get into the even more fun stuff of what, especially if you go with a plus license. So here we are zooming into New York.
That's great.
So
I know, again, we have a few non-Power BI users. What's really great about Power BI is you have this interactive capability. So as she's moving her cursor around, you're getting actual data that's driving that map view. So as you click on a spot on the map, you can see the data that are actually behind the map.
So I've switched over to, because I've not done any cleaning of data on the back end, that's why this yellow bar keeps popping up that's showing some things are not mapping at the moment. But I want to show just a slightly more or better example of kind of how this interacts and how Power BI is able to interact. And so say these are office locations, and you're able to click on one and it filters everything. And so you can see the client locations that the New York office is in charge of. And you can also see what percentage of the overall firm their chargeable hours are. We'll go to...
And this is how we've chosen to organize these data. So you can organize them any way you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, the GIS maps become interactable Power BI features, just like any other bar chart or clickable matrix or anything like that. You can start pivoting your geospatial data against your financial data or against your operations data in a visually interactive way. So to really enable exploration of your data, not just flat mapping and flat presentation.
So again, that's the really cool thing here, is you can combine your financial data, your customer data, and give it that, essentially the map component, and then drill through it and conduct analysis and sift through the data and ask it essentially questions and give you essentially that three-dimensional view of your data.
Yep. And while it's updating, you can see, so I just clicked on, this is for, say, a month, and able to click on a day, and it will update everything on this page of the report.
And we did have someone flag a question. Someone wanted us to repeat the subscription cost for ArcGIS in terms of the map creator versus a consumer. Do you remember what those are?
Yeah, so at least everything I've shown so far has been a part of the free version. And it's this icon, like if you get into Power BI desktop or online, these visuals right up until the ArcGIS maps are all the basic included. They're not custom visuals that you can import into Power BI. Everything you've seen so far is part of the free version of it. To the Plus version, which is brand new, it's not even been out for a month yet, is $5 per user.
On top of your Power BI.
On top of Power BI. And that is users that create maps using the Plus. Also, viewers will need the Plus, I believe,
yes,
to view those maps.
Yep.
You can't have one person in your organization with a Plus subscription be churning out maps for everyone and have them just be on the free.
Right. So again, I'll just reiterate that because I know there's a lot of customer confusion out there. If you're creating your maps with the
Plus features,
you need to consume those features also with a Plus license.
Correct. And don't quote me, but I'm going to assume that there's probably going to have to come out with an enterprise level subscription. Just like Power BI has different levels, I'm sure that Esri and Microsoft are going to come out with something. So if you have 500 people and you want the Plus capabilities with maps in Power BI, it's not going to be $5 for 500 people. They're going to have to figure something out at some point for all of that. And so, but right now, and the licensing is separate from Microsoft licensing, and it's you go through Esri.
And we can help you walk through all that stuff. It's a little confusing.
Yeah, but it's still like, as long as, like, what you do is you tie it to your Power BI, especially like your Power BI Pro or your Office 365 email address.
Right.
I'm going to quickly go back into talking a little bit more about what makes the Plus, the subscription version even better. And that's
the $5
per month
per user per month.
Yes.
That's in comparison to ArcGIS Online, which doesn't have the same data visualization outside of GIS capabilities of Power BI, which is $9 per month per user just to view maps and $42 per month per user in order to create. So you're already seeing, even at $5 per user per month, you're seeing substantial cost savings.
And you have more capability.
Yeah, adding in, so one-to-one mapping features, the ArcGIS implementations are going to be stronger for mapping versus the Power BI implementation. But if you're looking to combine geospatial analysis with your additional kind of operations and finance and sales and all those other aspects of your business, you're certainly not going to be able to beat it, especially for the price point.
Right.
I will say that for full capability on, not talking about Power BI, but Esri's ArcGIS platform, a full license per person runs about $15,000 to $17,000 a year. very expensive. But with Power BI and still being able to get a lot of those great capabilities from Esri's platform, and now especially with Plus, you get you can incorporate demographic information, both U.S. and global demographic data. This is just showing some of what the options are. You also are able to pull publicly posted ArcGIS features on ArcGIS Online into Power BI's extension. And so I just Googled or searched archaeology. And so you can see a lot of different options that you can use to pull in. And then lastly, there's also Living Atlas, which Esri's been pushing and doing a lot of support for. So you can also see a lot of the things that you can add to your map. So here's like population density by congressional district.
And these features are amazing because finding public data sets, getting it to match up with your business data and things like that can be 1 month, 2 months, 1 year project in and of itself. And so if you're just looking to do quick mapping comparisons like this to see, how does your population density match up against your customer density, things like that. ArcGIS has allowed us to do that in 1 click in Power BI instead of devoting a resource for months in order to get your data to line up.
In fact, a good use case that we're doing internally is for marketing, right? This helps us figure out where we're going to market some of our services and what services to market to certain geographic locations. So as creative as you want to be in terms of combining data and figuring out what to combine and what to do with those data, it's really, the sky's the limit. It's really how creative and innovative you are and what you want to know.
When they announced that they were going to have this ArcGIS implementation, the kind of community reaction was like, okay, but for how much? Was this going to be $200? Was this going to be $50?
A little bit of a robot. There's a robot in the room.
And so you can see, like, as
sorry about that.
That was awesome.
The other thing with there's some in the free version, but a lot more of these also infographics that you can use with ArcGIS. And so I did per capita and disposable income by household age. And you can see that it updates each time that.
And again, as you're seeing on the overlay, when you take your mouse and you go over that polygon, is that what they call them in GIS? You actually get essentially the underlying information. And that's what's really cool, right? You get to see what's driving that visualization.
And so, yeah, so this is just very quickly, basically, options that can be done with mapping in ArcGIS maps for Power BI.
And I think where a lot of this comes into is if you're not a GIS specialist, but you know that there's some sort of geographic geolocation that you want to overlay on top of your data, we can help you figure those things out, right? So what we do is we essentially bring together those the Power BI capabilities, but also the capability to overlay those data with the geospatial part. So you might have customer data, you might have financial data, something along those lines. We can give you ideas on how to make those more visually or geocoded, if you will. So we want to talk a little bit, because we're running out of time. time we have, we're going to talk a little bit more about some custom visual maps. So this is where you can get really creative and have a lot of fun in kind of showing things geographically and do a little bit more free form. Katie, so why don't you lead us?
So these are just, I just wanted to highlight other options that are available, free options that you can pull these into Power BI from Microsoft App Store. So the Microsoft Store, these are options, and both Microsoft has developed, some companies, and also some individuals, and it goes through a review process to be considered. It's safe, it's usable, it's compatible with Power BI, and so you can also incorporate these into your Power BI. This one's a flow map. The next one is a route map. And I'm not showing any examples. Like, these are just from actually the store, their visuals. I just want to show just options.
So these are things that you can add to.
Yeah, that you can pull in and use in Power BI. The next one, from Microsoft, here's a few different options. And
so if you're a Power BI user, how would you get these?
It's when you're in Power BI, there's under the icons for your visuals, there's 3 little dots, and you click that and it gives you options to import a custom visual either from a file or from the store. We'll go to the next one. Just another one these are interesting, just throwing out ideas of what the art of the possible.
Right.
Go to the next. There's also, these are 2 options, and the Visio, does require a Visio license, showing a slightly different way of mapping things. And the Visio option is pretty new as of, I think it's still in beta, but it was just recently released. But it shows a few other ways to map your data and make it interactive within Power BI.
So what's neat about these examples, we have a customer who is, they do construction stuff, right? And they want to be able to show on a map, essentially rooms like this is, and click on that, and they have certain types of data they want to include into that room, if you will. On the construction, it might be the cost of putting, certain things into that room, but they just want to be able to navigate around essentially a map, in this case a really tight map of essentially a floor plan, and they get certain information from it. So that's what this stuff is, and it's really powerful and a great creative use of their core data combined with some mapping data. Anything else on this one, Katie?
Nope, that's it. I just wanted to, so these were just showing just a few of the other options. I definitely primarily use ArcGIS maps. That's my favorite. It's also what I specialized in my education and what I'm familiar with, but it's also a very large amount of time, money, and effort was put into developing that between Microsoft and Esri.
We had a couple more questions. So we talked about the subscription cost. So that was $5 per user per month.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And that's for everyone. So if you have 20 users that you're going to want to be seeing these advanced ArcGIS maps, and you have one person that specializes in creating this map, you will need the plus. If you are going to create plus maps, you will need the plus subscription for all 20 users, not just the one user.
Got it.
And that's in addition to the Power BI licensing.
And we have another question about, John, I know this is one of your specialties. Can you explain where data are stored, if it's mapping data or regular data? How does that all work?
Sure. So no matter what data you're using, it's ending up in the Power BI cloud. So that's Microsoft's cloud infrastructure, part of the Azure platform. And it's very secure up there. The Azure cloud is all HIPAA and whatever other security acronym that you want to throw at it. It's got all of those, and Microsoft has a trust center where you can view the specific security credentials for any given service. You can check that out. But so you develop your reports using your data locally, and then it is pushed to the Power BI cloud and stored in Access up there. It's encrypted at rest and all that fun stuff. So if you're not comfortable with your data being on the cloud, or if you have an organizational provision, we've talked to some people who are using federal data that are just purely not allowed to push some data to a public cloud. And that is a consideration you'll have to take about whether Power BI as a platform is okay for you. If you are a government customer, there is a Gov Cloud for the U.S. government, and Power BI is part of the Gov Cloud. So I would talk with the tech people within your governmental organization.
So here's another one. It's addressed to you, Katie. Someone wants to know if, let me read this correctly, are business users able to do this stuff? In other words, could they be trained to incorporate the GIS data into their business data?
Yeah, I really don't think that it, at least at a basic level, yeah, it's not too difficult to add. There is the component of learning how to use Power BI at a functional level. If you're somewhat tech savvy, I think it's a pretty quick ramp up of being able to understand and do some basic building within Power BI. And then the mapping component, it's not too much more. There's a little bit of like training on kind of understanding different, especially using ArcGIS maps, your different options for how you spatially display your data. So like either like country, state, county, DMA, which is especially useful for marketing data.
What's DMA?
I don't remember the acronym, but it is what they use it's especially for marketing. It's larger than a zip code or a county. Sorry.
So it's a marketing unit.
Yeah, and then like zip code. And then there's also just a bit of understanding to go into using points versus boundaries. That's the language for ArcGIS maps and Power BI. But no, I think if you're okay with computers and interested in it, it's fairly easy to at least like at a more simple level incorporate this and use it.
Great, thank you. All right, one for John. John, what are the most common data sources that people are using?
We see lots of, especially for in terms of geospatial data, we see a lot of sales and marketing data coming in, because that tends to be associated with a customer location or a sales location. The other thing that we see commonly is information spread across business units. So for example, of our company, Withum, our business units are our different office locations. So we see data divided up by office location, and then often sliced down into combinations of office location and customer location. So looking at the interactions between those.
So from data source 2, I know you talked about various data sources, but is it best for customers to connect directly to the data source or extract it into a spreadsheet? What do you think on that?
Whenever possible, it's best to connect to the data source. And if you've got large data sources or complex data sources, it's often good to put an aggregation layer even in between your data source and Power BI. What we see a lot of customers doing is using the Azure SQL service provided by Microsoft to provide an analytics staging area that is in the cloud, and so very accessible to Power BI, especially when people have lots of kind of lockdown on-premises data. Right. It allows them to very specifically manage what data is actually being exposed to the cloud. Because some people are hesitant to, say, expose their entire production database or their entire customer database to a cloud-based connection. But if you can pre-aggregate that to a staging database, then you're limiting your exposure to a degree.
Well, no, one more question kind of related to that is how does Power BI get to my data on premise? How would it connect to that?
If your data is on premise, Microsoft has what's called the Power BI Gateway. This service actually works for a number of Azure services, not just Power BI, but it was developed with Power BI in mind. And what this does is create an encrypted and secure channel between your internal data and the cloud. So this is an application that runs on a server or on a machine that is inside your network, that's inside your security boundary, and it provides an encrypted channel directly to Microsoft's cloud.
Got it. So we had a question about what we do, and that might be a good segue to the next slide if it will click in. Someone asked us, so what services do we provide? Well, of course, we do it all, as you might guess. We provide Power BI training on the tool, but we can show you how to incorporate maps. We can show you how to incorporate different types of data together. So we like to think of these things. I should have put a slide in, but John makes fun of me. I like to put this pyramid slide in, which shows Power BI at the top, and it reaches down into your data. And so Power BI is, and what we've shown you today, it requires a lot of Power BI understanding, of course, but there's still a little bit deeper. There's the GIS knowledge that Katie has, for instance, and the data science knowledge that John has. So our capabilities in our consulting, we reach down, we know how to connect to data sources, we know how to shape and model your data to get the answers that you're looking for. So a lot of our customers will give us a data source, but they realize that they have certain questions they want to, or information they want out of those data. And John and the rest of the team, they'll help you figure out how to connect to different data sources, how to combine data to answer those questions that you're looking for. So that's why John actually is a data scientist on staff here. Katie is a Power BI specialist and very focused on the visual side of data. But what we can do for you is we actually offer a service for some of our customers. You can actually send us some data, and we do. John, what are the if a customer sends us data, what are the restrictions, if you will?
We ask people to keep it kind of low in volume if you can. If you've got a huge data set, try to take a random sampling, something under, say, 50 to 100 megabytes. Additionally, make sure that it's not confidential data. We had somebody take us up on this offer and send us several gigabytes of public health information. And when we saw what we were looking at, we scrubbed it immediately and deleted it and said, we're just going to pretend like this never, ever happened. So don't send us confidential information. Kind of abide by the rule. If you don't want your grandmother to see it, don't just email it to us, all that stuff.
I have another couple questions since we have some, one or two more. We have some data are in Google BigQuery. Can we deal with that?
Yeah, so BigQuery is a supported connector from Microsoft. If you go to the Power BI website, they have a full list of all the different data sources and services which Power BI connects to kind of out of the box. But additionally, because Power BI does connect to all the more open-ended types of connections like ODBC, JDBC, things like that, Postgres, there aren't too many databases out there or data aggregation systems, anything like that, that aren't running one of these more open source or widely available connectors at some level. We've kind of yet to encounter a data source that's purely locked away behind some proprietary connector that Power BI can't already connect to. So whether it's Snowflake, whether it's DB2, whether it's SAP HANA or something like that, Power BI has those proprietary connections when they are needed. I think when we first started working with the product, there was 45 supported connectors.
It's doubled now.
Yeah, and the last time I checked, they were up to like 95 plus, and they seem to be adding more by the day.
So there are pre-configured connectors for most data sources out there. Now, the good news is you have something that's kind of unique, pretty much you could just build a connector to it, correct?
Mm-hmm. And what we run into a lot is, say, with BigQuery, Redshift, things like that, your kind of large data warehouse stores, that people don't often want to expose that directly to Power BI or to another service. especially dealing with just the tax on their system of bringing that data in and out all the time. So that is, again, when we see people using things like Azure SQL to move data out in bulk in increments rather than be constantly querying back to their large source.
Right, right.
So for example, if you're using BigQuery, you might have an analytics job that runs once per day that outloads data to Azure SQL, and then Power BI can use the Azure SQL data so that you're not constantly pinging your production data warehouse with queries and updates.
So as you can imagine, so we have that Power BI expertise, but we also have the data and the systems expertise to help create a solution, if you will, that's going to work with your data, work with your network, and get your folks trained, right? We always want to make sure that if you're creating these dashboards and these reports, people are using them. And so that's that. I think that's it. Oh, we have one more question. Let me have a quick peek at it. So someone wanted to know how much is Power BI. We forgot to tell people that.
Well, it kind of depends what you're trying to do. So per user, it's free. If you want to use it with multiple users and have people be able to share things with each other, you're talking $10 per user per month, starting price, with discounts for education and nonprofits and things like that. If you start scaling up, say you've got over 500 users, you start getting into the range of the service called Power BI Premium, which allows you to have some kind of read-only users in addition to your report creators, and that start coming at a flat price, starting at $5,000 per month. Then, if you want to embed your reports, say in a website or application, there are tiers for that, which allow people to purely consume your reports through, say, a web portal, and those start at $750 per month.
Got it.
Those come with kind of performance tiers in terms of total renders per hour and things like that.
Great. Well, thank you. And I think that does exhaust our questions. We'll be a few minutes early. I want to thank Katie and John for participating today, Sasha for running all the stuff in the background, and our robot that showed up, which was probably me. But, so Sasha, anything else?
No, I think that was great. Thank you, guys. And like we mentioned, we'll send out the recording and the slide deck later today or first thing tomorrow. And thanks, everybody, for joining. And thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.